So as ever, let's check out those front pages, shall we? Starting with the Financial Times, the government's latest victory on welfare reform in the face of a backbench rebellion, of course. Top story for them, the headline, Starmer guts welfare reform to avert defeat in the House of Commons. The Eye says there was chaos in the Commons as Labour rebels forced the Prime Minister to retreat on his benefit cuts again. The Telegraph says the bill has now turned to farce. According to The Express, it was utter capitulation by the government. The Guardian describes Keir Starmer as bruised after having to backtrack on his bill to avert a revolt. The Daily Mail carries a figure, 20,000, which is the record number of small boat migrants that have reached the UK so far this year. On the other side of the channel, meanwhile, The Sun says French police are still doing nothing to stop the migrants getting into the boats. And the Metro leads with the ongoing trial of a schoolboy in Sheffield who denies the murder of fellow pupil Harvey Wilgoose, who was stabbed to death in February. So let us bring in then our guests for the evening, Kevin Maguire and Angela Epstein. Perhaps we should just start with an apology to numbers 10 and 11 for those newspaper headlines, which were themselves quite bruising, were they not, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely. I think, look, if there were political disability payments, they would be going to the UK Labour government at the moment. After I had a torrid week. And The Guardian goes for welfare bill passes as bruised PM backtracks to avert Labour vote. He did. They've backtracked so far because they've taken out the entire PIP section. There are other bits still in. There's an increase in universal credit, but then some people who get sickness payments won't anymore, and there's a back-to-work programme. But this core part designed to save $5 billion, that means take $5 billion from people who were getting it, is gone. Absolutely just pulled. And it wouldn't have come into force until after the Stephen Timms, the welfare minister's review, but it may not come at all now. And I think the Guardian quite rightly says the political authority of the Prime Minister is badly damaged after this week. 49 Labour MPs rebelling. The previous record in his government was 16. So that's soared, and it's created such bad blood. You're getting attacks from opposition parties. You'd expect that in the political system, but it's in his own party. It was the rising of the moderates and the newbies, and all those were just being taken for granted. Yeah, the usual suspects on the left were out, but it was the others, and it's a shambles. It's an utter shambles.
So for the public watching, do they assess this was just a bad bill, that part of it, or do they sit there thinking that number 10 did not read the room in terms of their independent-minded new MPs, some of them with very small majorities in their constituencies, and just didn't get it, didn't get them?
Everything about it reeked of shambles, all the things you say and more. On the one hand, the cliched reading of the room, it's anathema to Labour to take money away from people who need it. It's tattooed onto the heart of the Labour Party. We help the underdog, we help those that need the particular extra assistance. So you're already dealing with a very difficult subject, which is welfare. And, I heard somebody make a suggestion today that it almost should have been an all-party parliamentary consideration because, Ian Duncan-Smith could have brought his experience to bear before they even started sort of putting the quill onto the parchment. Then you had this almost remarkable Greek tragedy evolving today. So I think it was 2 o'clock, there are not going to be any more concessions. And then 5:30, just as I was going to go for a walk, I had to do a screeching U-turn of my own. It was like, what? Suddenly, yes, they're going to, as Kevin said, they're going to take the guts out of this thing. And we're left with not only the $5 billion that they were hoping to save, it may actually, in the long run, cost the party. And Rachel Reeves in the autumn is going to have to find that money. Is she going to be cutting spending? Is she going to be raising taxes? And then the other thing, very quickly, I would say, is it plays to the heart of the authority in the Labour Party because it shows that Keir Starmer is at the behest of the parliamentary party and he capitulates.
That's not a bad thing.
He capitulates.
Look, in a democracy, that's not a bad thing.
But the problem with him is that he's voted about 7 times in the course of his his year. We're talking about the 1 year anniversary. He's so busy glad-handing around the world, no here, Keir.
Yeah, but that is important. But anyway, that's an aside.
Maybe it's important, but if he, by his own admission, said he didn't give the bill the attention and scrutiny that it deserved. He, you know, with his Island of Strangers, he didn't.
But even with his eye, it may not have survived. Yeah. I mean, the point is, you lose political authority for what? In the same way, over the winter fuel allowance, you lost political capital. Over what? These are decisions being made with nothing to show for them.
Yeah, as he did over Island of Strangers, which, you know, I can
Says he regrets.
Yeah, well, I can understand he was distracted if your house has been firebombed, but nevertheless, are you really hiring people who are using language that will resonate with...
Absolutely. With
from Enoch Powell, Echo.
Wasn't that just after the local elections, though, and the rise of reform?
Absolutely. So. Well, then there's a whole discussion on the political strategy. Do you take on reform by fighting reform on its own territory, or do you fight on your own battlegrounds, the battles you want, not they want? I've got to say that you mentioned Enoch and Smith. Let's not forget the Conservatives imposed very, very deep, much deeper welfare cuts.
Absolutely.
I'll just mention the bedroom tax before he did resign as Work and Pension Secretary, because George Osborne, the then Chancellor, wanted even deeper cuts, which he couldn't accept. But Labour itself, they haven't thought this through. Now, if it's all about getting people back to work and all about helping people, I can't see how removing their personal independence payments between 30 and 180 odd pounds a week, paid irrespective of whether you're in the work. I think 1 in 6 people who get it are in work. They all have disabilities now. I just cannot see how you can defend that now. If it rocketed because all the interviews now are online or over the phone rather than in person, and there's an issue around younger people saying they've got mental health issues, big part of the increase, well, deal with that separately, but don't. There are going to be people who can't wash the lower parts of their bodies. We're going to lose their money. I mean, that's callous and cruel.
Yes. So let's just take a look at the headlines and pick out some of those words we heard. Bruised was this one in The Guardian. Welfare bill passes, as a bruised PM, rather, backtracks to avert Labour revolt. Backtracks at the 11th hour, as you were suggesting. The Labour rebels forced Starmer to retreat on benefit cuts again. This is an again, isn't it, amid chaos in the Commons. So the end result of this is what? We have emboldened backbenchers on the Labour side. You have a Prime Minister who thinks, how do I get these difficult decisions through? I'm not going to be, a sticking tape Prime Minister. And also, how do you save money in this country? The bond markets will be looking closely again.
Yeah, and the thing is, we do need a sustainable welfare budget. I mean, I think even the most unreasonable member of the Labour Party would agree that at some point, you have to be able to pay the bills. And the issue is now that, as I mentioned before, the government's going to have to find extra money. I think they said a further 2.5 billion of savings, it says in The Guardian, to Rachel Reeves' autumn budget. And where do they do that? Where do they make those savings?
Well, let's take a look at the FT while you're talking about, because that's not surprisingly for that paper. That's what they've picked up on, is it not? The full-scale Labour revolt fended off multi-billion-pound hole in the public finances with the budget coming up this autumn. You've got another summer where everyone sits waiting, wonder what doom is coming our way.
And also, sorry,
sorry, I just chucked my pen away. Anyway,
You know this one, if it's not nailed to
I might find another one.
Sorry, I can get it, I've got it.
But the thing is, we rehearsed that one. We did it quite well, didn't we? You should see what we do with the water. There was a great word that leapt out at me in the FT, and they called it an emasculated bill. And I think that actually absolutely plays to the heart of it. It's this idea of, does it have any kind of muscle? There's nothing muscular about this bill. All the things that Kevin said is right about the people that need help. We do have an issue in this country about making sure that the right people get help, and that the everyday, I know it's not a popular view, but the everyday highs and lows of life that people encounter, that can put them in low mood, that can at times paralyse them because they're just feeling so bad.
But this is the part of the nuts and bolts of it, is once again suggesting that mental health isn't a real illness for people.
But
that's...
But that's the problem.
It's harder to prove than a physical disability.
But that's the thing, it is a real illness, so we have to make sure those that really are absolutely blindsided by it and incapacitated because of it are the ones, given the limitations of the budget, make sure they get the help.
It's like mental illnesses exist and they destroy people's lives. We want to make their lives better. But it felt, and the FT are quite right, there's a hole in the public finances now as a result of this, but it felt as if the Treasury, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, wanted 5 billion saved, so it said to the Department of Work and Pensions, how can we save 5 billion to make my sums add up? This is how we can do it. Ian Duncan-Smith, you mentioned earlier, he kept getting asked to make savings by George Osborne, and that's how he came up with some of the proposals he did, including the bedroom tax. I've got a file, I think it was £500 million. But
it's partly the gutting of mental health services during austerity that might be causing some of this problem, like the NHS waiting list, which is stopping people going back to work.
Absolutely.
It's unjoined up Britain,
You're right,
isn't it?
and anybody with mental illness in their family or themselves or friends who come up against the NHS know it is massively overstretched because the demand is far outstripping the service. And it's always easy to say people are fiddling, people are gaming and all that until you get the face and the name and the life story of the person. And this is where the government could never win. Yes, it could never win on this.
We've got lots of other stories to talk about. I just wanted to pick up the words used in the other papers. Daily Telegraph, the word is farce, and in the Daily Express, utter capitulation. Not happy reading, certainly, for Downing Street, numbers 10 and 11 for the
or the DWP.
Papers. Or the DWP, indeed, so, with Liz Kendall taking, some of the flak for it, maybe. Lots more still to come. Another item on the government's agenda, it's curbing migration. They've got new record figures to contend with. That and more after the break.
Pushing forward, trying to get people to disperse.
What Prince Harry wanted to do was to eject me.
Is that your opinion?
It is. It is.
They were serious, coordinated attacks.
It's an entire generation that will have to contend with the horrifying impacts of this conflict.
The number of patients is increasing.
It's been quite some day.
Hey, what country?
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country?
You've gone viral.
I've ever had such a reaction.
It's just incredible.
Since the Oval Office meeting, have they reached out to you?
If Ukraine asks for help and its allies decide to help, then that's the end of it.
Criticism of you, the president, is banned. How is this a fair election?
Historic day here today. Beth Rigby from Sky.
You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
There could be some more painful decisions to come.
Thank you. Thank you all.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. Sky News, the full story first.
I'm Martin Brunt and I'm Sky's crime correspondent.
I'm David Blevins and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace.
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
In February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. Thousands of Russians were drafted. For some, the reality of frontline warfare meant one thing: desertion.
I had a rush of adrenaline. It was a kind of treason.
But they did not escape on their own.
I help people to desert Russian army.
The stakes are high, but for some, there's no other option.
We keep going till Putin's regime is over.
Escaping Putin on Sky News.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed.
It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
We're rolling.
Welcome to the world.
Our new podcast, starting now. It's very exciting. Every week we'll be reporting from the world's trouble spots.
We get to hold those in positions of power accountable, and we get to ask the questions that the audience, the listeners, want to know about.
And that's why it is so important that people tune in, come along for the road, come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Well, welcome back. You are watching the press preview. We are joined once again, as you can see, by Kevin Maguire and Angela Epstein. Welcome back to both of you. Well, here we go again then. Daily Mail, The Sun, 20,000 this year and counting. How's it going, Starmer, this policy, is what people will be asking.
So nearly in the Mail, I mean, it's a phenomenal picture on the front of the Mail, as you can see, with the huge figure in front of that. Nearly 900 people arrived in Dover from France on Monday alone. That's on top of a confirmed 19,982 arrivals, to be precise. And the Mail, obviously, are very on this story. They sent reporters to watch people waiting, traffickers take these taxi boats off the French coast, because there's been this kind of moot situation about whether the gendarmerie can stop people once they're in the water, and then the legislation has changed to now say that they can. But I was reading in one of the papers, I can't remember which one it was, where they were talking about the fact that it's going to rust their guns if they go in, and also if they're carrying very heavy equipment, is that going to compromise their safety? This is all because Starmer got into office and he ripped up the Rwanda bill.
I think you'll find it was happening before 45,000 was the record in a year.
But at least the Conservatives came up with a cogent deterrent, an idea that if you come here, you will not be rewarded with a taxpayer-funded stay in a hotel, that we will turn you round and go back. Well, you know what? It's fine if he rips up, but why not have something to replace it with?
The success when Sunak was in was the returns policy, the deal he did with Albania. 10 or 12,000 people had come across, and they could go back. That was the success. Just shouting Rwanda from Boris Johnson on, which was a gimmick, and Sunak had opposed when he was Chancellor. The Home Secretary also opposed it. And only, I think, 4 people went voluntarily, which is rather a lot of cash each, because there was 700,000 or so spent on it. There was only a few hundred going to go a year if it had been in operation. And if you committed a crime in Rwanda, you would have come back. So you just had to take...
But this is, Angela's point is the deterrent. We spent much of our evening talking about alligator Alcatraz, you know, the new deterrent, the new
let's say how much
centre in America.
How much of a deterrent that is. Look, this is
what exactly?
The alligator Alcatraz.
Yeah, but they're pulling people off the streets, the ICE agents, aren't they? That is a deterrent.
And they've deported some people who had to bring back because they were illegally deported, but that's not stopping people coming in.
But in terms
here, it's not going to be easy. There's no question. I think it's just like Sunak said, stop the boards. And Starmer would say, smash the gangs. It was never going to be.
The Sun's headline is buggy useless. You can work out what that means. People in Britain sit there wondering, why did they get rescued in the middle of the channel? That's what people will be sitting there wondering.
Well, let them drown.
But they don't. Who has jurisdiction? They mostly don't drown. They mostly get to the shores of to the beaches of southern.
Well, that's why. Look, I think you'll find whether it's the RLI, fishing boats, or the Royal Navy was deployed once, you'll find people who are at sea are not going to leave people in distress at sea or at risk of sinking and allow them to die.
That takes your deterrent away, doesn't it?
£500 million of taxpayer cash has been spent on France doing their bit in stopping people getting on boats.
That's almost as much as spent on Rwanda for the 4 volunteers.
Well, I'll come to that in a second. But they are leaving a country of safety, OK? And the other thing about Rwanda, OK, rip up the Rwanda scheme if you think it's not...
Do you mind if we do the last story very quickly? I've got 30 seconds, which is Tim Davie fighting for his job, The Telegraph says, over those Glastonbury chants.
Shocking, absolutely. I can't believe that it streamed for so long without somebody... Apparently, there were 500 people from the BBC went on the Glastonbury Jolly. Amongst all the people with editorial jurisdiction, did nobody think, this is wrong, let's cut it? Because when they call death to the IDF, predominantly Jewish people in the IDF, they're more or less saying death to the Jews. And it was so utterly abhorrent It had to be stopped.
They defended themselves, saying they're speaking out about violence.
Look, I think it was shocking.
Very
it was shocking,
yeah.
but not as shocking as the 30 people killed in a cafe in Gaza But no, they were saying death to the IDF. This is death actually visited on people in Gaza, where people are actually being killed. Look, that's a distraction. I think what they said was wrong. But that real people are dying.
It's not a distraction.
Here's the weather.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, cooler, more unsettled conditions are on the way, with a north-west-southeast divide developing for the end of the week. But low pressure at the weekend is likely to bring some heavy rain for the south. It'll be a much more comfortable night for the bulk of the country. Temperatures lower than they've been recently. Southeast, however, values may hold at 20 degrees Celsius, which would qualify as a tropical night. Cloud and rain will become confined to eastern counties.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Press Preview continues in Sky News at 11. Jury reaching a partial verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. We will have a full update for you.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead. Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out.
I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News. Get the full story first.